Welcome back to HW Golf Coaching and another video to help you with your game. Now, in this video, I'm going to be taking you through one of the biggest problems I see with golfers who are struggling to make the changes in their game, struggling to make the improvements in their game, even though they're putting in the hard work. They're grinding on the range, they're hitting plenty of golf balls, but they're just not seeing those improvements. Now, the problem, you're using the wrong feedback loop. And in this video, I'm going to be taking you through, first of all, what is a feedback loop, why your current feedback loop might be holding you back, and what you can do instead to start making those changes quicker and making them stick around and last for longer. So first of all, what is a feedback loop? Well, very simply, it's just a system that your brain uses to assess how an action went and what adjustments need to be made to improve it. So as a very simple example in golf, any golf shot we hit, that is the action. And then we have multiple forms of feedback loops that we could go towards to help us decide what adjustments need to be made. But this is where the issue arises with most golfers. They tend to use an internal feedback loop as opposed to an external feedback loop. So what's the difference? Well, very simply, the internal feedback loop is essentially what did the player feel? So they hit the shot and they feel it was either good, it was bad, it was uncomfortable, it felt smooth, I felt like I did this with the club, or I felt like I did that with my leg, etc., all based on the player's feels. Now, the problem with this internal feedback loop, and you'll have heard this before, no doubt, is that a player's feel is very often not the real. And many golfers feel, and this is going to be a bit of a hit to the ego here, but many golfers feel is nowhere near as good as they think. They think they're doing something, but as soon as we get it on camera, they see that that is not even close to what they thought they were doing. And this is the danger with using feel or using internal feedback loops to try and improve your game, is that it is subjective, i.e. everybody's feel is different. And if you haven't got that body awareness, if you haven't developed that feel in terms of where the club, your hands, your arms, your pelvis, etc., really is in space, as it were, it's going to keep tricking you every single time you're working on your game. It won't matter how many times you try to rep and feel like you're coming from this direction. If you don't have a feedback loop that is showing you whether or not you actually completed the task, i.e. swung from the inside, you never know if you're doing it right, and you never know if you're heading in the right direction either. You know, you can have a golfer on the range who's hitting hundreds and hundreds of golf balls trying to swing from the inside, but the only the only feedback that he has is that he felt like he was doing it, but he keeps on going miles over the top and he doesn't even really know it. So that's why we need to use some external feedback loops to help us make those changes. So if feel isn't reliable, then what is? Well, this is where we start to introduce external feedback loops. And very simply, an external feedback loop is simply feedback from outside of you, something that is not dependent on how you feel. So there are a few different external feedback loops that we can use. We're going to start with the most obvious one, and that would be the ball flight. So the ball flight is obviously the bottom line of it all. If I make the changes that I'm looking to make, it should create a change in the ball flight. If you do make the changes you're trying to create and it doesn't do anything to the ball flight, you're working on the wrong things, but that's another discussion. So let's just say we have our slicer, the guy who's coming much over the top. He's trying to swing more from the inside. Well, if he pulls it off, if he gets that club to come from the inside, he should see the ball start typically more out to the right and start curving back to the left, you see on the screen there. So that shows he must have made the change that he was after to some degree. However, when we do change like this, especially a player who is coming over the top, slicing it, trying to swing more from the inside, what can happen is they can hit shots like this, where they hit a big block out to the right-hand side, and they still see the ball go out to the right. And players' mind might go, I saw the ball go out to the right, I'm still slicing it. This is where understanding what we call the ball flight laws is really important, in that we can hit the ball to the right for a couple of different reasons. Okay, it isn't just a slice that makes the ball go right. We can push it and we can push fade it. And when we're making a change in our golf swing, we can start to see shots that still travel out to the right, even though we've actually kind of made the change that we're looking for. So you can see there on the screen that my club path went to 13 degrees to the right there. So I changed the club path. I achieved the change that I was after. However, the ball flight still went out to the right. So a player may misconstrue this now. They see, okay, the ball's still going right. I need to swing more from the inside. And they keep doing it and they send the ball further and further out to the right. So that's why, although ball flight is the bottom line, we have to change. Whatever we change, we're doing to improve ball flight. This is why we don't always want to use ball flight as the external feedback loop. unless we're very clear on what shot shape we're expecting to see when we make the change. Now, the second potential external feedback loop would be launch monitor data. So obviously I've got TrackMan here. So immediately I get to see why the ball flight I've just seen on the screen has occurred. So if I go back to the guy who was coming over the top, and I'll just do his swing here. So this ball starting down the left, it's starting to curve back to the right-hand side. You can see here that my club path is minus 13. So I immediately know by looking at that my club has swung 13 degrees left through the golf ball, as it were. And that is going to pertain towards a slice. I kept the face tight enough there to actually fade it back onto target. But if that face got a bit more open, then I'd start to see this thing really carving out to the right. So if I'm trying to change things and make it come more from the inside, I can look at that club path number and see that I changed that to 7 degrees to the right, which means I achieved the change I was after. Now, even if that feels wrong to the player, there's no arguing with the data that's on the screen. We can now see, look, the numbers changed, and on this occasion, the ball flight changed exactly to what we want to as well. So by having that external data, we can then start to correlate what it felt like and what it produced, which is a huge step when it comes to making changes quicker and making them stick. And as good as the launch monitor data side is, there's still a problem. It still doesn't show me how I actually move to produce those numbers. So this is where the last piece of external feedback loop is, and that is filming it. And there's been a lot of demonizing of filming your own golf swing over the years in fear that you might try to change things that you don't need to change. You start trying to make your swing look perfect, and that's certainly a danger. But if you're working with a coach, almost every coach these days is using a camera to show the player their movements. And I think it's so valuable to be able to look at your swing and learn what are the movements that you need to be improving in order to play better golf shots. That doesn't mean that you have to break down your swing in its entirety on its own. It just means you need to know what is the key piece that you need to improve to start playing better golf. So if you understand what move you're looking for, and as an example of the guy, once again, who's coming over the top, if we were saying that on the way down, we wanted to see his lead arm more in by his right bicep as we look at it from this view, if he was filming and he saw himself move out and over here, he now has immediate feedback knowing that I went back out and over again. And then what will happen is we will have prescribed him a drill to help him with the idea of trying to move correctly. Typically, if somebody comes over the top, a nice drill would be trying to shift the lower body forward so that we can create this shallowing effect and allow the hands to drop. But the point is that when they look at it on video, if they see that outward hand movement, or if they view it from face on even, and they see this movement as opposed to the shifting of the lower body, they immediately know what is the error they're making. And the whole point is then that they can start to create the connection between the feeling of what they're doing and what is actually happening. And that is why having video when you're practicing can be such a valuable tool. But you do have to make sure you're very clear on what key piece you're looking for. Not going around trying to change every little piece to make it look like X, Y, Z who's playing on tour, etc. But just so you can see whether or not you are making the movements you need to hit better golf shots and play better golf. So a little bonus one here, and that is constraint drills. These can also be a great form of external feedback. So very simply, let's again take our guy who's coming over the top. Something like this, whereby I'm basically placing a stick in the way that if the player were to make their usual out and over movement, they would go hammering down into the stick. Instead, their goal is to try and make a swing where they come more from underneath the stick, which is going to give them more of that into-out path and start to help get rid of that slice. Now, the only thing with these is word of warning. We don't want to rely on these too much, because if I'm just putting something in the way, it can be great to just help develop a feel in terms of okay, that's what it feels like to drop more underneath as opposed to coming way out and over, if you like. But if we start doing too many reps with this or relying on this, the moment it goes away, we haven't changed the movement. So players, when they do constraint drills like this, sometimes they can get a bit caught up with just hitting shots and it's great and they're hitting it better, etc. But they never really relate into what it is feeling like and what movements they're doing to change it. So very good for a little bit of feedback in terms of what sort of movements you are making, but don't rely on them. Don't get stuck hitting shots with them constantly. Hit a few with them to understand how you need to move and what that feels like. Step away, hit some shots without it to really dial in that feel and be able to take it off the range and out onto the golf course. Let's tie this all together then. So when it comes to fixing your golf swing, whether it's trying to fix a slice, control your low point better, or shadow the club, feel is a start, but it's unreliable. We may not have as good a feel as we think. The ball flight tells us the result, but doesn't necessarily tell us why the ball did what it did. The launch monitor data will tell us what the club was doing at impact, but really the video and the constraint drills, they're the ones that are going to really give us feedback on whether or not we're doing the movement that we need to and want to do. When we link all of those together, that's when we start to see changes happen really quickly. And this is why you will see so many coaches out there using a combination of launch monitor data alongside video to show the player what's happening, why it's happening, and how it looks and feels to them so they can start to really dial in those changes. So if this kind of coaching approach appeals to you guys, real feedback, tailored drills, and measurable progress, be sure to head to my website, hwgolf.co.uk, to check out my online and in-person coaching options. We can start to put together a coaching plan for you that is based on data, that is based on objective things, not subjective things, so we can ensure that we're making the correct changes to get the most impact on your game to help you improve quicker. Thank you so much again for watching. And as always, if you have any comments or any questions, stick in the comments below and I will reply to you in there.